Thank you so much to the ranking member and again to the mayor for calling this. But let me be clear. Donald Trump is running the most openly racist immigration regime in modern American history. I've said it once and I'll say it again. Donald Trump's mass deportation system makes me think of what a modern day slave patrol would look like. Slave patrols were armed groups empowered by the government to control, intimidate, and terrorize people solely based on color. That's what's happening now. Donald Trump is sending mass agents without warrants into communities of color to terrorize the people who live there. And the reason that I want to make sure that I draw out this link, because we heard Maxine say that black and brown is coming together. I want to be clear about this. This should not just be the immigrant community. This should be all of us united, because we know united we stand, divided we fall. And unfortunately, this last election, we allowed ourselves to be divided. Now, Ms. Velez, it's my understanding that you were detained by federal agents while you were on your way to work. Is that correct? Did any of these agents present you with a warrant?
No.
An explanation?
No.
Did they do anything other than illegally detain and arrest you?
Yeah.
Did they even identify themselves?
No, they did not.
Okay. Donald Trump has created an environment where these agents believe they are above the law. And one of the things that the ranking member just said was that there's a level of dehumanization. It is in that dehumanization, whether we are talking about the language they use to describe human beings, or whether we talk about the fact that they don't feel as if certain people are entitled to their constitutional rights. That is why Ms. Velez, unfortunately, was denied her constitutional rights, which we know she was supposed to enjoy in, just like those in our immigrant community. But this isn't just that this is the most openly racist immigration regime in modern day history. It is also the most violent and deadly immigration regime in decades. More people have died this year in ISIS custody than in any year since the early 2000s, and the year is not over. Ms. Kozlowski, talk to me about the disturbing reports of unsanitary and inhumane conditions, which are partly responsible for the increase in deaths at the federal detention facilities.
The conditions that we see in the federal detention centers, from holding facilities to facilities across the country, are absolutely deplorable. They are deadly, as you have pointed out. But we see conditions where people are denied medical care, where people are harmed while in custody, where people are held incommunicado from their families. What we are seeing right now are the most horrific conditions, and they are simply designed to get people to give up on their cases. They're intentionally cruel, being kept away from their families. In some cases, we've seen people in the midst of chemotherapy treatments, people on dialysis who are being held in conditions where they don't have access to bathrooms, where they're given rotten food, where they're in places that are so crowded, rooms that are meant for just a dozen people with 60 people in them, that they can't even lay down despite their delicate medical conditions.
Thank you so much. Listen, Donald Trump has dehumanized people of color for decades. I want y'all to understand this is who he is. This is an actual feature of what it is to be Donald Trump. Instead of a flaw, he demanded the execution of innocent black boys. He has been sued many times for racial discrimination. He called African nations shithole countries. He said that, quote, immigrants poison the blood of our country. And he's repeatedly refused to denounce white supremacy. In fact, he's hired many white supremacists to work in this administration. And now they're carrying out this racist and violent mass deportation, and it is destroying our country. LA, we stand with you, and we stand with the rest of this country. Thank you so much.
Right now, I want to bring back Dr. Larry J. Walker, the associate professor at the University of Central Florida. What are your thoughts about?
I need to acknowledge that Congresswoman Crockett is by far one of the most effective Democrats on the Capitol Hill. Every time she speaks about issues relating to this or other topics, she's always really clear and concise in terms of the message she delivers. So in terms of some of the things clear points she had to make is, look, for people who are watching this and, family and friends, either you believe in democracy or you don't. In a country in which people have been, in this case, fairly unfairly arrested, there is not only in terms of due process, but there's a level of humanity that has to be expected for those who find themselves in, part of the prison system, whether it's ICE or arrested for minor offenses. And what we've heard over the last several months, and what you heard Congresswoman Crockett describe, it is not consistent with a democracy. In fact, I would even argue that, you would find the UN, if they came in and investigated what's some of the conditions in which we've heard described in this conversation and others, is, we would certainly see some UN human rights violations. So as Americans, you have to stand strong and decide if we're going to allow people, regardless of their immigration status, to be treated like human beings, or we're going to turn a blind eye and let these conditions continue to worsen and more people lose their lives.
So you feel like these concerns are legitimate?
Yeah, I mean, this is inhumane. I mean, we can't constantly allow people to be treated like this. You heard the Congresswoman talk about individuals who are on dialysis or various other health issues that they can't even sleep on a cot, and maybe they have to sleep on the floor. We've heard all these conversations over the last couple of months about the food that individuals are receiving. In addition to that, what about all the pregnant women we've heard, in some cases, women losing the child because of the conditions they're living in, not receiving the kind of treatment they deserve. So, once again, the question I pose is if you believe in democracy, is this what a democratic nation looks like?
Tell us more about how people should be responding.
Yeah, I think that obviously, in the last couple of months since the election, we're seeing increasingly more people protest outside these facilities and protest elected officials, local, state, and federal level. And I think that, while there's some people may argue that this is not an effective tactic, it is. And how do we know that? Because history teaches that. When individuals protest from various racial, ethnic, and religious backgrounds, when they see injustice, then eventually the wheels of justice are turned in the right direction. But we need to see larger protests, and also for any corporations that are involved in supporting or platforms, social media platforms, then we should also not support those entities. And once again, apply pressure to local, state, or federal officials to make sure that, once again, that human beings are treated the way they should be treated.
Do you really believe that Trump policies are targeting Black?
Well, I think it's a coincidence or maybe not a coincidence. When we talk about, I know, Roland's talk on this show about, and we'll talk about today, the hundreds of thousands of Black women who lost jobs. I think we also saw the removal of TPS for Haitians, so hundreds of thousands of Haitians who can't possibly return to a country that's been ravaged by weather and economic conditions, and the number of gangs we see there. So I would say the policies and the public comments, like we heard talk about Somalians just in the last 24 hours, tell you where his priorities are in terms of how he views people, and also people of African descent. So I would say, actions speak louder than words, and as the saying goes, but we've seen the words and the actions, not just over the last couple of days, but over the last several years.
What do you think is to come within the next year?
Well, I talked about the importance of protests as it relates to, what's happening right now. But I have a stark warning for Americans, is that things are not likely to get better if there's not some significant political change. The Republicans control the executive branch, the House and the Senate, and several state legislators. So it's going to be really incumbent on American citizens to stand strong. And once again, if you, like I said, if you see injustice, you've got to, and in this case, you certainly do, is to fight for it, fight against it, and make sure this tidal wave doesn't continue to hit and hurt as many Americans as possible.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.